Good morning, everyone. And it's good to see you this morning at the intersection where faith, community, civic leaders come together. Since COVID mostly began, and sharing information, learning from each other so that we might work together more mutually, just serving those who are most vulnerable in our city. There's just no reason not to, even though we live in a separation of church and state. How can we serve people's needs together? It's also, I think, important to always think about how our congregations, all of our societal sectors, sit in our congregations. And at least for getting word out and needs and things that are happening, I think it's like one of the best ways to get that information out is through the faith community. So that's why we meet, to learn more, to know each other, to collaborate, to activate our networks and our resources together. And some amazing things have come of that in these last 5 years. So again, it's good to see you this morning. I'm wondering if there's any quick announcement of something that might be happening this weekend or in the very near future. I know the NAMI walk is on October the 8th, right? So that's 2 weeks away, if I've got my calendar right in my head.
Yeah,
so
and it's October the 8th, 7:30 a.m. at the San Antonio Zoo. It's always a absolutely beautiful day. The mayor is going to be there, the police chief. So, we hope everybody comes out, and it's all about fighting stigma and joining together and being there as community.
Thanks, Doug. Along the way, we want to really get into our conversation this morning because we have a lot to share. But others, if you should happen to have announcements or events, if you would put those in chat, and I'd encourage you to put them in a couple times, because as people join, they can't see the chat before they joined. So just at a couple points, you could drop announcements in if you'd like. Also, we're going to do this morning's briefing of collaborative more as actually being in one of our gatherings together as a collaborative. There are times when people ask me, how do they work? What does that look like? And it's a lot of connecting, but it's also just a lot of conversation and learning from each other and then making those connections and working together. So today we're looking at our newest collaborative among all the collaboratives. I did want to, while I'm doing a little intro here, I wanted to look at this document, just kind of scroll through it with you. This summer, we have been looking at each of the collaboratives that have formed out of the faith-based initiative of the city, also known as Compassionate San Antonio. And we've been going through those from the ones that were established first to the youngest, so that the youngest also had more time to develop and be able to share with you. I'm just kind of scrolling through this, really a report on collaboratives. It's my role with the city to form active collaboration among the faith community, government agencies, nonprofits, community groups, businesses, anybody who's willing, right, to work together. And I think you're going to find the collaborative this morning is a very diverse collaborative. These are the collaboratives that we have looked at, resourcing, and out of that came Sacred, and a lot of the homeless and hunger work that we're currently in came out of early action teams, mental health, our Compassion Institute and education, work with immigration and refugees. At the intersection is its own form of collaborative, wraparound care for those migrating and deciding to stay here in San Antonio as their home. The housing, we had those folks present a couple weeks ago, but working through the faith community, domestic violence. We're going to be at the Story Collaborative. Some of you attended the Healing Power of Stories. Our one next week is going to be Healing in Community Collaborative. The one we are, it's not even on here. I have to get to work, don't I? Today is the very newest one among us. And it began to form just 2 days after Uvalde. We were, I would just say, kind of a God thing. We were really blessed the day after Uvalde happened to find out that the director of the Sandy Hook Foundation was in San Antonio. And so we shifted rather quickly for that Thursday morning. And she came and shared with us some real wisdom about not going there unless you're invited and needed type of thing. And just really basic, and that the work is, doesn't go away. That healing work will be there for a long time. But during the conversation that morning at the intersection, I think it was Paul who sent me a chat, sounds like a new collaborative. And so I wrote him back and I said, do you want to lead it? And so that's when it began at the intersection 2 days after Uvalde. So Paul, Paul is a social worker, a leader in the local National Association of Social Workers here, the Alamo branch. He's also worked with city task force along the way, and he worked with the police department at one time in his history. So Paul is one of the co-leads of that. Like I said, that started 2 days after. So Paul, from your vantage point, why is this collaborative different than the others? Why is it important, this collaborative work that we're doing through what we call the Sane Society Collaborative?
Well, being the newest kids on the block, that means that we need a lot of adult supervision. And we've been very fortunate to attract a number of people who are both young at heart as well as have a lot of experience as well. In my case, the word in the city of Uvalde meant something very special, because you recall when we were in the process of trying to find places to get COVID-19 shots from the very beginning, and it was so difficult to do that here in San Antonio. My friends and I looked all over the place, and bless their hearts, the folks in Uvalde welcomed us back in January and February. I got my first 2 shots there. And so I just had this warm feeling about the place. And as it turns out, when the shooting occurred in May, that was only a few blocks away from where we had gotten our shots. So there was a very special place in our hearts, in addition to the loss of the 19 victims and the one shooter as well. That's one reason why I mentioned to Anne that we would be willing to help form a new collaborative. And we've been so fortunate to get a variety of folks from a variety of disciplines to join us once a week at our Tuesday afternoon sessions.
Paul,
you'll get a chance to meet some of them today.
So Paul, it was spurred out of Uvalde, but is this collaborative about Uvalde? What's the work of this collaborative?
We are not limiting ourselves to just mass gun violence. That's certainly a beginning point. But when you look at the statistics and see the number of incidents that have occurred even since Uvalde, you realize that a lot more needs to be done, not just locally, but statewide and nationally as well. It was fascinating to see our county leaders, for example, Judge Nelson Wolf, the Sheriff Salazar, and our DA Joe Gonzalez, get together and to ask for state leadership in this area. They have not yet been heard, but it was exciting to see that kind of local leadership step forward and attempt to do something on a larger scale than just local.
Yeah. I also remember, I think it might have even been like the Monday after, not even a week, right? That I got an email from the mayor's office that there was a pastor who called in and wanted to help and do something locally in terms of, preparedness, prevention, whatever that might mean. Herman. So that's how I was connected with Reverend Herman Price, and he's with us this morning. Herman, could you tell us a little bit as a faith leader, and I know Paul too is a faith leader at a Lutheran church here in town, but Herman, could you share with us what spurred you into contacting the mayor's office and joining this collaborative?
Thank you, Reverend Ann, and good morning to all. I thought as a faith leader, the challenges of our day is so important that we take on the challenges as we look at those challenges through the lens of God. For me, what would he say and what would he want to do with us and through us? And so I felt it was so important that another mass shooting at one of our schools, that the church be a part of that, every church, be a part of that and do our part to bring some healing to the community. And so I think it's so important that the church be a part of the community and lend its voice, its helping hands to do what it can to help lift up, to encourage, to bring love and healing. So I wanted to be a part of that. I reached out to the mayor and I said, what do we got? What's going on? What are we doing here in San Antonio to make this thing happen? And what made me call the mayor was that there was an event at Travis Park and you had different community leaders were speaking out. It might have been maybe the next day or something. And that triggered me to reach out to the mayor to say, what could we do? What could I do to help you and to be a part of the community? And so that next thing I know, I'm getting an email from Ann about the Sane Society collaboration. And I think my first day I said, it'd be insane not to have me a part of this. I need to be a part of something. So it's been, we've been able to have conversations about a number of things that's happening in our community and what we can do at a local level, state level, or on a national with the federal government. We have talked about those things. And I just think it's a beautiful thing to see the community work together to help solve our problems.
Now, one of the things too that in earlier conversations we discovered about this collaborative, one of the assets of this particular collaborative are the broad networks, the large networks that each of us bring to the table. So Paul brings to the table the Alamo branch of the National Association of Social Workers. And Herman, I know that you work with a larger body of people.
Yes.
Tell us about that body.
The Community of Churches for Social Action. It's a communication social actions. We are across the faith lines. CCSA is across faith lines. Back in 2005, CCSA was responsible for saving the nursing program at St. Philip College. Back then, our leader was the late Dr. E. Thurman Walker, pastor of the Antioch Church on the east side, down the street from St. Philip College. And so the idea through a bond election, it was going to move the nursing program from St. Philip to the north side of town. And we say, no, you can't do that. It would hurt the school. And so we had a slogan, vote it down, send it back, do it right. And that particular issue kind of threw us out there. From that, we were able to bring an amateur sports complex to the east side. The Wheat Light Sports Complex is something that CCSA was a part of. We had a voice around pre-K for SA. We believe in early childhood education. And so we were part of that conversation with our mayor, then Mayor Castro. And then I'm a part of the Baptist Ministers Union. Baptist Ministers Union been around for a while, as well as Cops and Metro Alliance. I've been a part of Cops and Metro Alliance for about probably 25 years as well. And so being a part of this, it allowed me to be a carrier of information back to all of those other institutions. And so we're able to reach a lot of people across the city and across space lines.
Yeah, and I bet you never would have thought you'd be writing an op-ed for the newspaper with one of our police officers. And I want to introduce next Officer Doug Green. These two guys just recently wrote an article, op-ed. It hasn't been published yet because it was just sent in. But I mean, you can start to see the diversity in terms of parts of our society that are represented in this collaborative itself and how we are working together. One of the things that came out of the intersection is a nice partnership with the Express News and the Faith section. And if you haven't been reading those, we've been working at having different people from among the collaboratives add op-eds so that we're getting more of the word out. And so these two guys partnered together and wrote an op-ed. Doug, I know post George Floyd, and I know you say, and even some before that, right? But a new unit was formed in the police department, and you lead that. Could you tell us about that unit?
Yeah, so the unit is called the Community Engagement Unit, and it's a little bit more focused, I would say, on having conversations with our community. The kind of the slogan that we use in this unit is we're going to do a crock pot cooking approach, and we're not going to try and microwave a solution and try and find a quick solution. We're going to take it slow. We're going to do a lot of listening. We're going to try and understand. We're going to fall on the sword if we need to fall on the sword. And we're going to try and heal together. And what we've found is that just having one-on-one conversations with people, sitting across the table with them over a cup of coffee or going out to lunch and really learning from each other has been slowly but surely the best way I'm seeing from our department to move forward in bridging the gap and building trust between law enforcement and the community. And not only is that good for the community, the law enforcement is part of this as well. And officer wellness is a pretty serious issue. If you don't know this, more officers are killed suicide than in the line of duty. That has been the trend the last couple of years. And unfortunately, we have lost multiple SAPD officers to suicide. And so the pressures of the job continue to mount. The emotions of the society and how humans are treating each other, and officers have to respond. We have an obligation to respond to tragedy. And unfortunately, over a couple of years, you have cumulative stress that builds up. And it's not like we can tell trauma to stay at the police station at the end of our shift, or stay in the patrol car, or stay in our locker. Trauma rides with you as you travel back home to your family. And when you open the door, you tell trauma, stay right there. I'm going to go in. I'm going to go see my wife and kids. And trauma says, no, I'm coming right in with you. And I'm going to say hi to your wife. I'm going to say hi to your kids. And so this has it has a huge impact. And so it's more than just SAPD going out and serving our community. It's internal healing that we have to do as well in order to be better servants for the San Antonio that I love and the people that we love here. And so I am very honored and glad to say that we are moving in the right direction. And I'm so honored to be a part of this collaborative to have these very important conversations.
So this collaborative too, I mean, so all of the collaboratives, when you start to look at them, they're all connected, right? And it's just easier to kind of take bites of different things and work with them. And so we have like the one next week is on healing and community. And it really is focused like on collective trauma and then how do we heal as a community. But I see the subtle difference with this collaborative. It's more focused on the violence and the threat of violence that happens in community. And the other one, healing and community, does look at that, but it also is like collective trauma in terms of we all lived through the pandemic together, right? It's not quite the same thing. And so another member and the other co-lead of this collaborative is Erica from Metro Health. I don't know how many of you know, but within Metro Health, as long as I have known, there's been a violence prevention arm within it. So Erica, could you tell us a little bit about violence prevention? You lead that. You're new to that leadership role within it. And you also at one point in the collaborative talked about, I hope I get this right, but stand-up essay, was that it?
That's
So
correct.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that and your role.
So I am essentially an area administrator for violence prevention. So we have several violence-oriented programs clustered together, and I supervise that cluster. The work has been around for several years in different ways, but not always completely organized together. So in the last 2 years, it's been organized as one grouping and more infrastructure has been put in place. This also coincided with a migration of domestic violence crisis advocacy support that was conducted at SAPD over to Metro Health under the vein of putting social service approaches in an organization that does that kind of work, and allowing the law enforcement agency to focus more on things related to law enforcement. There in particular is a program called Stand Up SA, SA being for San Antonio as usual, the way we use it. This program's actually been around for 15 or so years, and it has itself migrated between different organizations. It's been with the health department for 7 or 8 years at this point, but it used to be with the organization My Brother's Keeper, and with another organization prior to that. It is based on an international evidence-based model called Cure Violence. Before that name, that was called Ceasefire. So if anybody's from the Chicago area, you might have heard of that. That's where it was born. It functions around the idea of using epidemiology and public health approaches to intervene in gun violence. And now that we've all been through an infectious disease pandemic, this is so much easier for me to explain to people. Essentially, you remember when COVID started and we were concerned about contact tracing, finding people who were sick and all the people they had been in contact with. It's the same idea. Our team works directly in neighborhoods, directly on the street. They learn about gun violence events, incidents that have occurred. They find the people who were involved. They track down everybody who was related to it, and they mediate the situation. They are not members of law enforcement. They are really lay community workers. You have to have lived experience to be on the team. So everyone on the team has a history with gun violence in some way, whether they have lost a child to gun violence. Many of them were in gangs, have been incarcerated, have criminal records. This is their path to a nonviolent life. And I kind of liken it to somebody being a peer sobriety coach. It's quite a similar focus where these folks are working in the neighborhoods that they grew up in, that they live in, to help other residents find a way away from this type of violence. So they're trained to go find these events in the aftermath, talk to everybody involved, prevent retaliation. They also proactively canvass neighborhoods in an effort to find skirmishes and de-escalate those. So that's kind of how it functions. They do community outreach on a regular basis. And then for people that they connect with who say, I'm struggling, the reason that I'm involved in a lifestyle where I am committing violence against others, or where I am routinely victimized by people, is because of various things that tend to be called social determinants of health. People need jobs, people need stable housing, people need food, people need legal assistance. All of these things, the team helps them find that. We have a person we'd been working with who ultimately was implicated in some kind of violent event and spent some time in jail. While he was in jail, our team remained in contact with him and helped him apply to a barber college. And when he was released, he went straight into the barber college. And he's actually now developing his new profession. And they are working with him still as he's on his pathway to this reintegration into the community and embarking on sort of a violence-free lifestyle.
Amazing. And it's amazing. It sounds like something that would come out of almost like the faith community. It's like, I wish we had thought of it. And I trust actually kind of the moral universe that the people who did put it together to begin with were also probably people of faith in a better world. And so, seeing violence as a public health issue and concern, because it is, obviously. And some might also kind of, there's also domestic violence, right? And we have a collaborative, because that in itself is a large thing. And so this collaborative is, much more in terms of intervention, prevention, preparation, in terms of threats. How do we heal from those? How do we help each other? And there are a lot of things that, as a faith community in particular, but anybody in San Antonio, we just don't know all the resources that are out there. It's kind of sad, happy, but right before before COVID began, I got a phone call from a guy named Lou, and Lou is with us this morning. He had just moved to San Antonio to do this job across Texas, visiting congregations and folks in particular, only to become isolated. So he decided to have a child instead. Anyway, Lou, you're with us, right?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
I think you were one of the first on this morning. So Lou, tell us about your job.
Okay.
And what that offers to the community, not just congregations, which it's incredible unto itself, but how can you help?
So yes, ma'am. I am with CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, under the Department of Homeland Security. So I'll use DHS loosely here, because I understand that a lot of San Antonians understand DHS as Department of Human Health Services, but I'm from the federal DHS, the federal government DHS, Department of Homeland Security. So CISA we kind of deem ourselves as the nation's risk advisors. So what we do is everything in the realm of preparedness and mitigation planning to prevent risk or an incident happening at your facility. We support in assessing, evaluating, connecting all the pieces that help you mature yourself to better protect yourself. Although our focus is critical infrastructure, that's about 80% of our work. We have a hometown security initiative. Within that hometown security initiative, we support soft targets, crowded places, K through 12, the faith-based community, in identifying, assessing, connecting, planning, training, reporting, really giving it the whole gamut of how to prepare yourself, how to prevent an incident from happening at your facility, and really helping you mature yourself. Because we understand that sometimes we don't, most facilities don't have the funding to hire a consultant to do something like this. So Department of Homeland Security, CISA, does this at no cost. It's non-regulatory. It is free services that allow you to support yourself and connect you in ways to build your overall maturity against an incident.
So how does, like, is there a process? How do people then connect with you? Which makes me think of everybody in this collaborative. Could you please put your emails into chat?
Yes, ma'am.
People want to connect, but how do they connect with you, Lou, in particular?
So that's the challenge that I've had, and you mentioned it earlier. I came on ground 3 years ago, and then we got hit with COVID. Well, my primary job is to engage with partners within the district. So I am 24/7 in my car, meeting with stakeholders and partners at their facilities and talking about planning within their facilities. So these programs, I look at myself as kind of a coordinator, right? I have the resources, I have the tools to make the community stronger. The process or how we build that into the community, I try really to engage in organizations like this, right? Or where we have a collaborative. The community comes together, many minds can hear what services we have, and we work to implement them. I worked with the Jewish Federation here in San Antonio, and I look at them kind of like the gold standard, and I hope Lisa Epstein's here but I look at them like the gold standard because they had reached out to me. The Federation had reached out to me. We ended up assessing every single one of their facilities. A few, I think, used those assessments to apply for the Department of Homeland Security nonprofit grant, which helps with funding security systems, things like that can support your overall protection needs. And from training to active shooter preparedness, we went through the entire community, the Jewish community, and provided resources and tools. I kind of like that model because it's kind of that pyramid model where I start at the top at the leadership and I work my way to all their facilities. So like I said, I really do. Mr. Peter Onfray as well. We worked with his facilities. He has a school and their faith-based community or facility supported him in assessments as well as active shooter preparedness and planning resources. So that is really, I am an email or a phone call away, and I will engage. I'm here to support the faith-based community with any resource and training that I can provide. And I will put my email in the chat.
Thank you. I pulled up something I sent out too with today's notification. It's a front and back one pager about changing our news and how if we work together, we can make a difference. Talks about public health trends, but the reason I pulled it up in particular was with Lou talking is that one of the efforts from this collaborative was just to pull out some very basic resources into the community that you could connect with. One of which is Lou's work. I'm looking for it here. Here it is. I love this. Just say hello. And what that can do, like in a congregation, if people are saying hello to the people who are coming in, right? But you can find on the attachment that I sent yesterday, this resource that has other resourcing within it that's particular to what we're talking about this morning. There was one question I saw quickly in chat And then I also want to hear, we've got some peace and justice folks who are part of this collaborative, and I want to hear from them too. But what happened recently at Jefferson High School, there was a question, can you relate this work, or how, contextualize it a bit, but utilizing the recent occurrence at Jefferson High School. I don't know, Doug, would you like to kind of respond to that? And anybody else from the collaborative?
Yeah, so I was actually just reading the supervisor's synopsis. All the supervisors have to send a summary to the chief's office on high profile events like this. And if everybody doesn't know that there was it was a prank call that was made in the Jefferson High School, that there was an active shooter, that 24 people were shot, and that was all that we got, which created a huge response from SAISD police and San Antonio Police Department. And so we had a large amount of officers arrive at that scene, to the school, went in there, cleared and later found out that this was all a prank. Was able to get things settled down, but word had got out to parents, and that word spread fast. And a lot of parents showed up thinking, not having all the information, but under the understanding that their children may be hurt in that school. And so as they were getting there, we had one parent showed up with a knife and was breaking windows, and a lot of parents, and as we can all probably relate to, this is a very emotional thing to hear, especially after following what happened to Uvalde. But I think communication kind of, maybe it could have been clearer to the parents. And I think I heard the superintendent from SAISD talking about how we were clearing this up. But when I first heard about this, the first thing that came to my mind, brothers and sisters, were bullhorns. Somebody get bullhorns. And so when all these parents that are high emotional state are arriving at this chaos, immediately hit the chaos with an announcement. This is a prank call, everybody. Prank call, everybody's fine, everybody, it's okay. And so there wasn't a huge blast to everybody. And so people was trying to still figure things out. And unfortunately, some people had to be either detained or arrested. It's my understanding that the gentleman with the knife was arrested. He did lacerate he did suffer some laceration from trying to break the windows, and was treated. But yeah, very chaotic scene, but that it's sad, but that we can learn from. And this is what the collaborative is for. This is what the intersection and all these collaboratives that I want to thank Ann for helping initiate, for us to have these conversations so we can learn, how can we do better?
Mm-hmm. How can we learn, and how can we, I don't even want to think about that we have to prepare, but how do we do that? How do we intervene? How do we better care for each other and work together towards the greater good? I just learned about this event a year ago, and it's coming up again. So it says Interfaith Safety and Security Symposium, that's here in San Antonio, but it's put together by the Fusion Center, which includes all of our public safety entities in that, FBI and the PD. And so I'm making an announcement, but at the same token, I remember last year, the first time I knew about it, we were kind of hearing about how other efforts were being done. I remember Austin, but we were doing efforts here as well. And so I kind of stood up and feeling a little alone. Wendy was there, but Lou was there. He stepped up from the side and he waves his hand, I'm here, type of thing. Long story short, and I don't think I've gotten back to this team about it, but this collaborative is going to be giving a briefing within this symposium this year in December. And I'm going to be telling Billy here, he's also doing tools and community resourcing. So in two places, two of our collaboratives are going to be giving briefings. And so this symposium is a mixture of faith community and our public safety, our security community. So y'all might want to note that on calendars, but you can start to see how the collaborations that we're doing start to help us connect more and work more effectively and efficiently together by knowing what we have available and developing relationships that we can call on and relate. And some of the things we learn are small. So I'm seems small. It's Doug saying we need bullhorns. We'll remember bullhorns. It's a one thing, but it could have made a huge difference. And when you start to study compassion skill sets, it can be very small things that can change an entire scenario from becoming violent or to make it more whole. So Lou has his hand up quick, and then I'm going to call on Arthur and Karen. Why are they interested in a part of this? But Lou, what's up, man?
Hey, Ann, I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I do want to highlight one initiative that I've been working with, along with the Sane Society group. In my engagements with K through 12 and other organizations, so we had a candid call after Uvalde. It had the Fusion Center, the National Threat Assessment Center, under the United States Secret Service. The FBI was on the call. We had the Texas School Safety Center, and it was a kind of a candid conversation of, we have all these great resources, but what are we missing, right? Where is it not where is some of this resources not falling down right? Where is it not being understood? One of the things that really stood out to me during that discussion, and this is kind of a call to action, right, is there are resources to help the mental health, the children, if we identify indications and are allowed to intervene. There are resources that we have throughout the community, but I don't think what we don't have is a catalog of those resources where we can hand them to schools, and then parents can then take advantage of them. And I'm only thinking of if you look at these incidents at school shootings, think of if the child was able to have some help way in advance, right? I think there are ways that we can intervene sooner as a community. And it's really a call to action, because I've never seen anything like that, but I would love to see something like that. I would at any school that I would go to, I would say, here's a catalog of community resources that parents can take advantage of. Some of them are at no cost, some of them, whatever it is, right? But they are there to talk to you and walk you through this challenge that you're facing right now. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I think it would be fantastic to see something like that, and it would really fall well with the initiative that we have, and know the initiative is to really break down all the federal resources, state, local resources, rack and stack them, and kind of walk schools through the process of how this all is applicable, because we know that the retention and people shift out of their position often. So sorry, didn't want to take a lot of time, but I just wanted to mention that.
This is a perfect example of collaborative work, because that man behind the curtain today, Billy, I'm wondering, Billy is with the San Antonio Community Resource Directory. Does something like that already exist, Billy, in the directory, or do you see a direct connection here?
I don't know of a group like this. I don't know of a set of resources like this in the community. And it's interesting you bring it up, Lou, because I'm a part of another group that needs to hold an event in November. And one of my first questions as a board member was, okay, how do I go ensure the physical security of the building as we're going to have a bunch of kids together? So I love what you're doing. And I think this is definitely an area where we could help as Sacred by gathering those resources.
I think so. So now you two guys are connected. It's exactly what happens with collaborative work. So in our last couple minutes, I'm going to have Arthur and Karen kind of I don't know, sum it up, inspire us, call us to action. Why are you a part of this collaborative, Mr. Peace and Justice social worker Arthur? You're on mute.
I'm Arthur Dawes, and I represent an international peace organization, which is locally active. It's called Pax Christi, a Catholic peace organization, which was founded after World War II, when Germans and French people were telling each other, we were killing each other, we've got to make peace. We are looking at the power of words, and has been mentioned by Lou about the trail of actions and words that take place. In this presentation, we've also talked about trust and the importance of trust in the words that we share. I'm intrigued by the storytelling and by the fact that we all have stories, we all have scripts. And just recently, I heard that 60% of major health conditions can be prevented by change in lifestyle. So we look at our actions and we look at our own stories. And the question is, what role does each of us play? How can we identify this trail of actions towards peace as peacemakers? And at the same time, we're looking at all the energy today of collaboration. And there is tremendous power in clarifying, well, what is peace? Just recently in Pax Christi on the state level, we've taken strong positions on gun control, on the death penalty, and on the development of nuclear weapons. I know that we don't really feel that here locally, but it is a very serious national concern. And so we are looking at, well, what is the recipe to peace? What is the trail to peace? And what is each of our individual role, no matter how small it may be, we're all involved in this.
Thanks, Arthur. And
One last thing, there is a serious issue today of misinformation in the media and about words being misused and people being misled. And we welcome anyone in the community who wants to engage in the conversation about how can we clarify words that create peace.
thank you, Arthur. And Karen's going to be a familiar face because she's one of the leads of the Domestic Violence Community Collaborative, and they just presented. So Karen, you have some last words, a call to action for folks?
I will do my best and to be as brief as possible because I know we're over time.
But it's been good, right?
It has been excellent. It's been a wonderful conversation. As Anne pointed out, I am a co-lead on the domestic violence. And so I immediately saw the connection between domestic violence prevention and this collaborative. And that's one of the reasons I joined it. I guess what I would choose to focus on with the minutes that I have is not only looking at individually how can we step forward, but also recognizing that all the trauma that all of us are facing, that the world is facing, is perpetuated by the systems that were created at the origin of our nation. And they were created on some faulty thinking. They were created that we're separate from one another. We now know that's not true. They were created in the idea that we need to compete against one another. We know that's not true, and that we need to collaborate. So we need to be looking at our systems too and redesigning systems. And I'm going to take this back to faith and say, do we believe everyone was created in the image of God? And if we do, then our systems need to start looking like that.
There's a call to action.
Yeah.
That was no small call. So I want to thank you for that, Karen. You were working it, weren't you? You were working it. So thank you for that. A lot of information, good information. I hope it's been helpful to people. I just want to thank Sacred for recording all of these and encourage people to utilize the recordings. And I know some folks who have done that, like within their organizations, that they wanted to tell them about one of the collaboratives because they wanted their organization or congregation to join in that effort. So these recordings can become very valuable tools, not just an archive, but a tool for your use, and even just a portion of one that you want people to hear or share with your spouse or whoever it might be. But it's a whole lot easier, I find it is, to kind of get something that's more the source than having to be the person who's kind of, relaying the information. So those are available. I don't know, Billy, if you can quick drop that link into chat before we totally sign off. I don't know. I guess we should start saying that this gathering is not a half hour, but an hour, but don't tell anybody, because the next thing you know, it'll be an hour and a half. And the next thing you know, it'll be 2 hours. But we do try to get the bulk of the information within that first 30 minutes. So to honor people's time. And yeah, we just want to make sure and honor people's time as much as we can. So I want to thank all of the collaboratives, especially want to thank this collaborative this morning. And I gave them kind of a heads up. We're, going to be doing a presentation in December at that symposium, which is a great thing for all of our collaborative work. And so is sacred.org, Billy. So we need to mark December 13th. I think it might be a Wednesday, 12 to 5, and it's free. So we'll be talking about that more, and I'll be sending it out. So thank you all this morning. Next week, we'll be hearing from our last collaborative that is current, and I hope to see you there. Take care. Have great weekends.